Hope everyone's doing well this morning and you're all warm. We're cold up here in our corporate office region. I am going to show my camera just so that I can say hello to everybody. Then I'm going to turn it off while I'm presenting. So thank you for joining us today. This is our webinar on assessment as a solution. How to use assessment to satisfy accreditation requirements in business administration programs. So I'm going to go ahead and turn off my camera now, and I'll get started with the presentation. Okay. Bear with me for a moment. Having some technical difficulties. Okay, I think we're going now. Okay, so once you have created your learning outcomes and you have them written, you've mapped them to your curriculum, then you're ready to evaluate those learning outcomes. And the best way to understand this is by considering the specific metrics, measures, and targets or performance objectives for each one of your learning outcomes. So what are metrics, measures, and targets? What do I mean by that? The metric is the instrument that you're going to use to evaluate your learning outcomes. So that can be an exam. Or it can be a student exit survey for indirect learning outcomes. The measure is the specific result from the metric that you're using. So the results that you're getting from your exam, the percentile rank, the percent change, all of that data that is provided from your assessment then is your measure. And then you're going to set targets. So most accrediting bodies, that's what they want to see. They want you to set a target, and then they want you to measure and see what kind of improvement that you've had. So even if you don't meet your performance objective, if you're making progress towards that performance objective, that's what they want to see. So how are you currently assessing your learning outcomes? Some institutions have their own in-house assessments that they use, and then there are external assessments like Peregrines that provide, a lot of ease of use, convenience, reporting capabilities, a really painless process. So Peregrine's solution for business administration programs is our academic programmatic assessment. The objectives of this solution are to provide a meaningful, cost-effective, and practical solution. Using our assessments, you have that measurement tool. You can directly measure student knowledge. If you want to, you can do it from the time they enter the program until they graduate. We have inbound, midpoint, and outbound assessments. So at any point within the program that you want to assess their knowledge, you can do so. You can also compare against external benchmarks, internally analyze your results, and address the accreditation requirements. So our business administration assessment is customizable. everybody's learning outcomes are different. Their curriculum's different. This is a nationally normed programmatic assessment, so it covers, a wide variety of programs, and therefore we have it customizable to address those differences. So some of the key features of our assessments is that they are specific to you and they're aligned with your learning outcomes. You can integrate them into your learning management system, and that provides a really seamless delivery for students. We have undergraduate, master, and doctoral level test banks. You have access to our client admin portal 24 hours a day, which means you have your students' data at your fingertips at all times. We have extensive aggregate pools for the business administration assessment. So you have plenty of benchmarking options available to you. So there are currently 13 business administration topics available. So if you're going to implement our assessment in one of your programs, we would have you look through these topics. We would provide you with summary information so that you could evaluate all the subjects within these topics and the types of questions, and then look at your curriculum and your learning outcomes and decide which one of these topics you want to include in your assessment. We have additional topics available for marketing, human resource management. Those are advanced topics. So if you have programs that are specific to marketing or human resource management, or if it's a business program with a healthcare emphasis, or they're finance students, you can use these supplemental and advanced topics to create an exam that also addresses those areas. Another option is to, some institutions like to have major exams and assess those students on their major as well as the business core. So with that, you're killing two birds with one stone per se, because you're evaluating them on that major as well as the core business areas. The third option is a course level exam. So if you're wanting to assess your students' knowledge, say, for example, in marketing, then you could create a course level exam that just uses those marketing topics. And that is not something that you would benchmark, but it's a way that you could assess your students. As I mentioned, we can integrate within your LMS. There are, as far as I know, there aren't any LMS systems that we can't integrate with. So with that, the exam is just embedded in your course as an assignment is, and the students click on it and they're automatically registered and served up our assessment. The other option is to use a school branded microsite, which is a landing page on our website. The students just use that link and they enter in a registration password and they access the exam that way. The inbound exam, if you're using an inbound, it is generally put in an introductory course. So maybe Business 101 or something of that nature. An outbound exam is generally embedded in a capstone course. However, you can get creative with that. If you're using the assessment, for example, for incoming MBA students, and they're not students yet, they're applying for admission, and you're having them take the inbound exam to evaluate, where they're at when they begin the program. In that case, they may not be in a course, and so you can use the microsite option, and they can easily access it without actually being registered for a course. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about how our assessments work. If you are not familiar with it, our assessments were initially designed to be taken online. So during these difficult times with COVID, a lot of institutions have been forced online. And our assessment is a great option for that. The reason being is that students can take it from home. There's no requirement for them to be physically proctored. The exams were designed to not be physically proctored, and I'll explain that more as I'm going over this. So as some of the ways that we secure our test bank and we ensure that it is, the integrity is maintained, is the questions are random. So 10 questions are randomly generated per topic for each student. So no two students receive the same set of questions. In addition, the questions are timed. They only see one question at a time. They can't go backward, they can't go forward, they can't change their answer on an already answered question. And they get 3 minutes by default, 3 minutes to answer each question. We also monitor their activity. What that means is that if they attempt to open up another browser window, they're going to get a warning message at that time that tells them that they should not open up other browser windows, and that information is going to be reported with their results. So once the students begin the exam, they need to complete it within 48 hours. So a lot of times these exams are fairly lengthy. For example, if you chose all 13 topics, that's a 130 question exam. So because of that, we do allow them 2 15-minute breaks while the exam is running. That will pause their time. They also have the ability to exit twice and then come back to the exam. So if they are taking the exam from home and they need to stop to go pick up their children from school or something of that nature, they can exit the exam. They have to finish the question they're on. They exit, they can come back twice and pick up where they left off. So we generally recommend that that if you're administering an outbound exam, that you incentivize it. And what we mean by that is that they receive points or a grade for their completion of the exam, as well as their result on the exam. So you could give partial credit for completing it and then additional credit based on their performance. What we've seen with this is that if you don't incentivize the outbound exam, students are getting ready to graduate and they don't adequately apply themselves to the questions. With the inbound assessment, that isn't necessary because you're just getting a baseline for where they're at, and incoming students they're more fresh, they're more willing to apply themselves, and they're concerned about the perception that their instructors will have based on their score. So the students receive a completion certificate. You can require the students to submit their completion certificate and just have them submit it within their course to you, just as they would an assignment document. The other option is if you're integrated, if we've integrated with your LMS, then you can just have the grades automatically post back to your grade book. You also have the ability to run your student results through our client admin site at any time. So now I'll talk a little bit about our client admin site. And this is what the dashboard looks like. As I mentioned, you do have 24/7 access. So within the registrations page of Client Admin, you can look and see at any given moment who's registered, who hasn't, where they are in the process, what their result was on the assessment, how much time they spent. You can also actually view their progress through the exam. So we have approximately a dozen different reports that you can run. And I'm going to go over a brief description of each of those. And we have a report wizard that is really easy to use. In most cases, you're going to enter in the same information every time for each report. You're going to enter in the time period you want to see data. You're going to enter the academic degree level and the assessment category. You're going to enter in that same information for every report, but there are some variations depending on the report. But the report wizard walks you through that. And somebody like me, I am the Senior Client Services Manager for Peregrine Global Services, but me or a member of my team would also provide you with a client admin tour, and we would walk you through all of the reports and how to navigate the system. So the first category of reports that we have are individual reports. So we have an individual results report, and we do have an example showing here of that report. It is a spreadsheet of your students' results alphabetically by student last name, and it provides you with their results overall and at each of the topic levels. It further breaks it down to the subject level. We also have a pairwise report. The pairwise report is for showing growth and learning from inbound to outbound exams. So if you're using both to evaluate your student learning, then for those students who have entered the program, taken the exam, and then take it again right before they graduate, you can see their growth and learning from beginning the program till the end. The next category of reports is our programmatic evaluation reports. And so the first one is the longitudinal analysis report. So with that, you can enter in up to 4 different time periods. So for your accrediting body, they may want to see a certain number of data points. So this is a great report for that because you can show 4 at one time, and you can run it multiple times if you need to have more than 4 time periods. But this shows you a side-by-side comparison of those different time periods, the changes in your students' results over time, as well as benchmarking. You can choose up to 5 benchmarks when you're looking at that data. The internal analysis report is really, as the name implies, it's intended for an internal evaluation. So the internal analysis report actually goes down to the subject level. It provides a scatter plot of completion time, so you can evaluate how much time students are spending on the exam, and also evaluate any results that you might want to filter out because they were just clicking through and not applying themselves to the exam. Also, this report provides percentile rank information. The external comparison report is used for benchmarking. You can choose up to 5 benchmarks. This report also provides percent change information as far as students who have taken the inbound and the outbound, and compares that with your benchmarks and how much of a percent change those benchmarks have compared to your institution. The program cohort report is another way that you can slice and dice your data. So you can add cohorts to your exam, and those would be different categories of students. So if you wanted to compare campuses, or you want to compare majors, you can add those to your exam, and students would select their category at the time that they register for the exam, and then you're able to compare those different cohorts of students. The supplemental reports include the response distractor report. This is a unique report. It's Peregrine's newest report that actually looks at what type of error is the student making if they selected this incorrect answer. So what Peregrine did was coded the entire test bank of incorrect answers and made a determination as far as what type of error are they making if they select this incorrect answer. Is it a knowledge-based error? Is it a concept-based error? Is it a critical thinking type of error? And it's going to provide in the report where those concentrations of errors are so that you can see what types of errors. Are they making a calculation-based error in their accounting majors? And then look at the different areas where they're making those errors. And it's really useful for faculty to see that and be able to decide, do I need to tweak something in the way that I'm teaching this so that they don't make so many calculation-based errors, or why are they not getting the concept? The student survey report, this is an optional service that Peregrine provides with the exam, and it's no additional cost. You can attach a student exit survey to your exam, and it's 100% participation for all students who take the exam. The reason is they receive the survey before they begin their exam, and they have to answer the survey questions before they begin their exam. The grade scale report is very useful if you are trying to decide how you want to grade or assign points to an outbound assessment. So the grade scale report will, once you have adequate data, you can run this report, and it's going to show you some suggested grading curves based on how your students historically perform on the exam. The aggregate reports, these provide, there's two aggregate reports. One is client schools. It's going to show you actually which schools are within each aggregate pool. So while you can't pick and choose which institutions you want to benchmark yourself against, you can look at those different aggregate pools and which schools are in those pools, and then decide, okay, well, now I want to benchmark against this pool. The aggregate extraction report is showing you the aggregate pools in terms of the size of data, like how much data is in this aggregate pool that I'm benchmarking against, because that can make a difference when you're looking at that comparison. So validity and reliability is very important to Peregrine. And so we have our assessments go through a regular reliability analysis to determine the reliability of the questions, if they're too easy, if they're too hard. And so we regularly are updating questions, removing and adding new questions to make sure that that assessment is always reliable. We also have a white paper on it, which is referenced here at the bottom. So as I mentioned, this assessment does address accreditation requirements. So depending on which accrediting body that you're currently accredited through or that you are seeking accreditation from, our assessment is going to provide those measurements that we talked about in the beginning. So the accrediting bodies are going to want to see that data. They're going to want to see data that indicates that you are achieving your targets, and that's what our assessment provides. So this is our solution pricing, and this is dependent on your volume per year, what you expect, and it includes all of our solutions. So if you're using other solutions, those are all included in your services per year number. And we have flexible purchase options. You can offer it through the bookstore. You can have students pay for it with a credit card when they register, or you can do both of those, a combination of both. If some students need to use financial aid through the bookstore, others don't, and they just want to use their credit card, that can be flexible for them. You can also have your institution be invoiced and the institution pay for the assessment, and then you can pass it through to the students through course fees if you need to. Okay, so I'm going to open it up for questions now. I would also be happy to set up a call with any of you individually. I believe I have our contact information on here. So feel free to, go ahead.
We've actually gotten a couple questions in, Laura. The first one is, what is the pricing of the additional topics?
Okay, great question. So there is no charge based on topics. Peregrine charges based on exam registrations only. So you can set up as many exams as you need to. You can use as many topics as you need to. That does not drive the price.
Perfect. And our next question is, does the Peregrine score benefit the students in other ways after they graduate?
Well, they do get a certificate of completion, which provides their percentile ranking information. So they could use that to demonstrate how they, how they performed on a nationally normed exam. Are there any other questions?
One just popped up, and it is, so if the core and additional topics were administered in different courses, then they would count as 2 exam registrations?
No, not necessarily. What we would recommend doing is having it within one exam. So those major students, say they were accounting majors, they would take an exam that had the core and the major within the same exam. And then across all your students and the entire program, you can compare their performance on the core topics. So it would just be one, and we would recommend that it just be one exam, one cost.
Perfect. And then the next question is it optional for an institution to publicize their results?
Yes. Some institutions want to publicize their results because they're proud of them, and they want to, you can actually, it's your data, so you can take some of the tables and graphs and charts from our reports and actually publish those. Some marketing teams want to do that, but you are not required to do it. That's optional.
Another question, what is the best manner to run a pilot of a Peregrine exam?
So you would want to have a sufficient number of students. So maybe at least, depending on your overall student body, maybe 50 students at least. We're happy to set you up so that you can do a pilot. We don't have any requirement once you do a pilot that you continue on with it. So you could just choose a course that you want to administer it in, or a certain group of students that you want to have take the test as part of your pilot. It doesn't affect anything as far as Peregrine goes. We're going to set you up just like we would set up any other client. You would be allowed to conduct your pilot, and then if you decide that you don't want to move forward, there's no obligation to continue. However, if you do want to move forward, everything's ready to go. and you can just continue on from that point.
All right, the next question is, can students export their reports in a format they can use for a portfolio?
The completion certificate is very detailed. That is all that the students are going to receive. They're just going to receive a detailed certificate of completion. It's going to show them their result at each of the topic levels, as well as each subject within that topic, and then provide them with an overall score and the percentile rank information at the bottom. Only faculty and administrators of the institution actually have access to the reports themselves.
Awesome. And then the next question is a follow-up to the student benefit question. Do employers recognize Peregrine results in any manner?
I am not aware of how industry might recognize our assessments or not. So I don't have a good answer for that question.
And then another addition to that question, if not employers, do graduate schools recognize Peregrine results?
More and more graduate schools are using the Peregrine assessment. I believe that if a student was incoming to a graduate program and they had results that they could demonstrate of how they had performed on our assessment in their previous program, that would be I think that is good data to provide to a new MBA program, and more MBA programs, for example, are using our assessment to evaluate where students are at when they're coming in. So I would say, yes, I believe that our results are reputable, and they're becoming more and more widely used amongst institutions. Worldwide, Peregrine has over 400 clients using our assessments. So we aren't, we have a lot of data, and we have over 10 years of experience in higher ed. So I do believe that our results are, they're reputable, and I think that they would be recognized in many institutions and many graduate programs. Although obviously we can't claim all.
Doesn't look like any other questions. They just said thank you for answering all of their questions.
Wonderful. Well, I forgot to turn my camera back on. Let me turn it on and okay. Thank you, everybody, for joining me today. As I mentioned, if you have any other questions or you would like a one-on-one with me, I'd be happy to schedule that for you. You'll see the contact information provided here, but I'd also, you can also email me directly at clientservices@peregrineglobal.com, and I'd be happy to set up a meeting. We can set up a virtual meeting with all of your staff. If there are multiple people who have questions, I'd be happy to address those for you. Thanks again for joining me. I look forward to working with you in the future. Have a wonderful day.